Hello everyone, Ember here, welcome back to a new video. In this one I'd like to talk about the many different Mews of GLC. So what is GLC for those who don't know or will need a quick recap? Basically it's a single prize only, no rule box format, so no EX Pokemon, no VMAXs, no GX, stuff like that basically. So single prize only. It is singleton except for basic energy because that would just be awful if you could only play a single copy of each basic energy. That would be atrocious. But yeah, it is singleton except basic energy, so no multiples of Pokemon, which is a bit brutal sometimes, and you'll see that especially for Mew because there's a lot of Mews that are really fun and interesting. So, it is a bit of a shame that singleton is a thing in GLC sometimes. Also, only one type per deck, so there is only Psychic Mew. So, unless they decide to randomly print a Mew in the future that's not Psychic for some reason, then, there will only ever be Psychic Mews for GLC. So, the first Mew we can take a look at here is a promo from Black and White. This one is okay. I think it's an okay control piece. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not awful either. The ability Size Scan just allows you to look at your opponent's hand once in your turn, which is quite nice. And Psychic Exchange allows you to shove your hand to your deck, then draw 6 cards. It's not an amazing card, but it's not terrible either. Like, you don't really want to be shuffling your hand and drawing more cards with an attack, but at the same time, it is just for 1 energy. They just have 6 HP. The ability is fine, It's a painfully okay card. Like, it's not awful, but it's not great, and sadly with Mew, there is just so many better options. So yeah, that's the first one. Next up is we have a Clairvoyance Mew and a Psychic Mew. So we do have a nice rarity upgrade, although I would argue that I personally prefer the base rarity, actually, the promo on the left here. So it does have Clairvoyance, which is basically just the ability from the previous one, but now it's an attack. And then Psychic does 40 damage and 10 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Sadly, I don't think this Mew is very good. Sadly. I think this honestly might be a bit worse than the previous one, just because Psychic is only doing, 40 damage, 50, 60, 70 sometimes, maybe a bit more if you're against a Wailord, but, it's very iffy, especially requiring, a whopping 3 Psychic Energy just to do that amount of damage. Yeah, feels a bit bad, but sadly I don't think this Mew is very good at all. Next up, though, is we do have a way more interesting Mew, and that is the one from Fates Collide. Personally, one of my favorite Mews, just because of how fun this was to play with Bassimian at one point. But yeah, it does have the ability Memories of Dawn, which says this Pokemon can use the attacks of any of your basic Pokemon in play. However, you still need the necessary energy to use each attack. But still a really cool effect, right? Because it just means you can play a bunch of different basics in GLC, all of Psychic, of course, so it doesn't matter, like, the energy cost shouldn't be too outrageous. And it just means that as long as you have a way of accelerating energy, such as Xatu or maybe Psychic Embrace Gardevoir, then you at least have a way of copying all these different attacks. And you could definitely do something fun with a basic Psychic GLC deck. So that's cool, at least. Also, the attack encounter is okay. It's not great, but if you need to track down a certain Pokemon desperately, then it is there as a nice option. And on top of that, this Mew does have free retreat. So yeah, definitely one of the more interesting Mews. Is it the best one? Maybe not, but I still think it's really fun. And it's, there's a lot of really cool basic attacks to use. Like there's an Necrozma that has a cool attack. There's a, Neoligo as well, actually, from the Sun and Moon era. Several basic Psycho Pokemon that have cool attacks. So yeah, pretty cool Mew in my books, to be honest. Next up is we have a Mew from Evolutions, set XY. I have a bit of a soft spot for this Mew, just because it's from the set Evolutions, which is, I know it's like shameless base set pandering, but I do love the artwork a lot. So yeah, very cool card design. 40 HP is a wee bit painful, to say the least. However, both the attack and the ability have some defensive applications, like Cyball is potentially doing Paralysis, which is quite nice. But the ability Neutral Shield says prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's evolution Pokemon. Now, typically, not always, but typically, on most GLC decks, now, again, typically, not every deck, but there is quite a lot that are built around very powerful evolution Pokemon. Now, in a format like GLC, though, it is very easy to just attack with pre-evolutions and basics. But say, like, mid to late game, your opponent has several evolution Pokemon out, they would then have to set up a basic to attack with. I don't think this card is super great, but it is thematically quite cool. It's fun to use. The artwork is amazing. It's one of those things where I would play it if I had it, basically, but it's not like a particularly great card by any stretch of imagination. Still could be strong against evolution-centric decks like Torterra and such, but with only 40 HP, most basics will be able to KO this very quickly. So yeah, that's Evolution's Mew. Then we also have a promo version and the one from Unbroken Bonds, both of which have a pretty cool attack. Psi Power allows you to spread 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like, which is quite nice for hoovering up KOs in a spread deck. Then the ability Bench Barrier prevents all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's attacks. So, fantastic ability. I think this is probably the best Mew in GLC. There is another one which we'll talk about shortly, but to be honest, I think this still has the cake for being the best Mew. Bench Barrier is just such a good effect to have in GLC, so not every type, as far as I can tell, has access to Bench Barrier. That might be incorrect. I have to verify that actually, but yeah, it's not a thing that appears very often. And just the fact that Psychic has easy ways of finding Pokemon as well, through things like Mysterious Treasure and Fog Crystal, just means that you're never not going to have access to this card, assuming it's not prized. So yeah, very easy card to use, very splashable, and yeah, just very effective. So very, very good Mew. Next up, though, is we have Mew from Hidden Bulk, because my goodness, this is bad. I know this set wasn't supposed to be anything special, but yeah, they really weren't trying with this guy. It's a very terrible card. One thing I will say as a positive is 8 HP is way more than most Mews ever have, so that's a plus side at least, and everything else is terrible. We can move on. And then we have one from the Shining Legends. We have a Shining Mew here, which is a Mew that sometimes gets forgotten about, to be honest. But 30 HP is a bit brutal. Does have free retreat, though, which is nice. And 2, well, the first attack is interesting, at least. Legendary Guidance allows you to search your deck for 2 energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. Notice how this doesn't specify basic energy. So if you really wanted to, you could accelerate some special energy with this, which is quite cool. But still, you are effectively offering this guy up as a sacrifice, right? 30 HP, this thing is going to get killed with anything. However, accelerating to energy is quite nice, and I think there will be some instances where this is really, really strong and will help you win games and such, but at the same time, 30 HP, that's the really bad thing about this card. It's still a good pivot, I would argue. Maybe there is instances where this is better than Clever, but sadly, why I think Cleffa is better than this card overall is just the fact that there are other Mews that are really good. I would argue there's several Mews in this video that you could play before playing this one. So, it's just kind of it's one of those things, right? It's a bit of preference, but it's also there are better Mews, at the end of the day. It's still a cool Mew, though. I would say it's still pretty cool and good for accelerating energy. Then we have a one from Crown Zenith / Celebration, so plenty of art rare choices for this one. Mysterious Tail is just a fantastic ability, and it's why I was hesitant to say Bench Barrier Mew was the best one. But to be honest, I still think that one takes the cake. This one is really good, however. If this is the only Mew that you have, or the only one you can get a hold of, then, absolutely play this one. Mysterious Tail is fantastic, of course. But, Bench Barrier just kind of outweighs it a bit, I think, in my opinion. Also, Bench Barrier 1 has a better attack in the form of Psi Power. Psi Shot's just not very good, but yeah. This Mew, still pretty good though, and 60 HP is quite nice. A wee bit tankier than most of the other ones. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release, so subscribe if you're interested in being updated. And this is now a series to stay, so let me know which Pokemon you'd like to see. There is a list, I'm currently making my way through them, so if you have any suggestions though, then just let me know. But it might just take me a wee while to get to them. But if you want to dive into the competitive side, then Omnipoke and the format creator Tricky Jim have both done fantastic videos and guides for each type, just as a recommendation. So yeah, it's been Emma Power, and yeah, thank you for watching.